Hi everyone, part 2, second question. I will try so hard not to go 20 minutes. I'm sorry. Perhaps don't watch it, just listen to my amazing South Australian accent. So I've got a question here from Dipti, as you'll be able to see on Story Park. I'm going to break it down because it is a big juicy question. So I'm going to break it down. She says, I would love to know about your kinder program, what you were mostly concentrating on in regards to child's development areas. Awesome. So thank you, Dipti. First of all, when we set up our room, in the kindergarten room, we don't just go, all right, home corner there, Play-Doh table there, dining table there, etc. No way. Both Arthur and I studied at RMIT, and in our opinion, and over 8 years of teaching in long daycare, sessional, all different types of early childhood settings, RMIT is one of the most best institutions to get teaching qualifications. In my experience, I've worked with a lot of teachers, a lot of co-educators, and all the RMIT students, they have this awesome, very similar teaching philosophy, and it's pretty much based from the New Zealand model of education. I'm not going into that, but I mean, we're a huge fan. Arthur and I are a huge fan, and if you strip it right back and you unpack it and you see it for what it is as a training, as a degree of education, it really is quite holistic and quite intelligent, because it taps into making sure that you see every single child in that classroom, and that you see on a daily basis how you're catering for that personality, that spirit, their essence, and to foster a natural, free gymnasium of a love of learning, basically in a nutshell. So RMIT can't thank them enough. It was an incredible training facility. Anyway, moving forward, so when we design a classroom, we design a classroom with the soundscape notion. Now, most educators should know this, and if they don't, well, now they do. A soundscape, when you create a classroom, a soundscape is where it tapers off with the noise level. So, for example, when you open the kindergarten room, it really should be in your face, quite loud, quite active, quite energetic, and lots of play happening, and the volume is quite raised. Yeah. Now, as you walk through the room, the activities taper off with their volume. So they taper off with their volume, going lower and lower. So, for example, when you open our kindergarten room, you're greeted with the locker area, the frazzle of finding names and getting bags, the dining table. Then you go over to the drawing table, you move through the room, and you get to the group area. And then activities are placed in between those soundscapes. Now, there's a lot of evidence out there that talks about the importance of creating these soundscapes. And the reason why we create these classrooms that cater for these soundscapes is so that children can have the opportunity at certain activities to hone in to the auditory sounds around them. You're not going to put a drawing table where there's quite a lot of conversations, lots of giggles, because, you know, children will draw funny pictures and other children will laugh, or then there'll be intimate conversations about, it's mummy's birthday, so I'm drawing her a cake, and, you know, then someone gets upset because they miss mum. So you're not going to have a drawing table right next to the meditation area or the mindfulness area or the super calm area. Yeah, areas need to be placed where the noise tapers off. I'm trying not to go over this. So I'm trying not to think about it. I'm trying not to analyze it too much. But Dipti, basically our classroom has been set that way so that children can have the opportunity to go and play in the loud areas. That being home corner, Play-Doh area, dining area, Lego, construction, right? Or they can go over to the other side of the coin and they can go down to the bottom of the room and they can hang out in the group area and sit on the couch and read a book. So they're away from all that noise. So that's catering for all of our senses as humans. It's the soundscape of a classroom caters for touch, taste, and all of those. I can't think of them right now because I've got all this information that I really want to get out. But the soundscape of a classroom caters for the senses. It also caters for all of the development and learning areas. Now, a lot of us might not have any idea what the learning and development areas are. It really depends on a centre's philosophy of how they cater for play-based learning. Most centres are play-based. If they're not Reggio-inspired, you might have heard of that term, or they might be Montessori-inspired, another term you might have heard. But majority of centres in Australia are very much play-based. And in a play-based kindergarten program, there are typically 7 areas of learning and development. Now, they include under all different headings. It just depends on your teachers. Excuse me. Have to have some water. It just will depend on the teaching team and how they want to label that. But what I would suggest, Dipti, is I would love you to go onto Story Park and I'd love you to go into the post where Arthur talks about all of our learning and development areas and what's in those and why they're in there, because that will give you an idea of what's in the space. It's not just toys placed on a table. All right, there is Lego, for example. There is Lego in our classroom to support fine motor. Why do we need fine motor development? Because we need to be able to hold pencils. We need to be able to learn to hone in to an activity and develop our concentration ability. Why do we have Play-Doh in the sensorial area? We have Play-Doh in the sensorial area to cater for senses, to cater for relaxation. Some children will be at that Play-Doh table for up to 20 minutes and they're just zoning out. They're loving the texture. They're loving what it feels like. They're loving looking at all the different objects and shapes that they can make. Or perhaps they're really liking getting the pop sticks and putting them all around the Play-Doh as to create a cake for mum on her birthday. Yeah? So everything in the room supports each of those areas. What is incredibly important in a truly magnificent kindergarten program and a classroom is that it is delivering a free-flowing, natural curriculum. Gone are the days where we teach our children to have letter of the week, or sound of the week, or theme of the week. Now, don't get me wrong, there are still services across Australia that are still implementing this very, very old style of teaching. There is so much scientific evidence out there and lots of articles with amazing people talking about the reason behind why we don't teach like this anymore. And I'm not going to get into it because we don't have time for that. But it's really important for you to understand as a group of families that why you might not see all, on the door, you might not see letter of the week A or sound of the week, C. The reasoning for that in a nutshell, is because children are all learning at completely different levels, at completely different speeds. And so if we're introducing group times where we're reciting the alphabet over and over and over, children are only learning through parrot. Children will only learn through the sound of that song, through the rhythm, through the music of that song. But then when you ask them to spot the letters in a book, or perhaps go and collect their hat and point out, the letter P, they have absolutely no idea because it's parrot and they haven't had a chance to use repetition and write that letter. They haven't had repetition in looking at that letter over and over. So there's a lot of evidence why we don't teach like that anymore. And that's why in this room you don't see letter of the week. You don't see a lot of alphabets all along the classroom. And there's very good reason for that. Because how we're catering for, which Dipti, I'm going into your next question. How do we cater for literacy in particular? Great question. We're catering for literacy in a really natural manner, and the reason why we're doing it in a natural manner is because we need to remember that these children will learn through invitation. They'll learn when they feel connected and safe to the educators around them. If you've got an educator who's quite intense and very stressed and they've got to get this lesson out, that child is absolutely psychologically and subconsciously, they're going to pick up on A, how you're making them feel, B, the energy around it, but also they're going to remember that moment of when they were introduced to that writing style and the intensity of it. So it's really important that when we do present activities in our classroom, when we do those small group activities, that it's invitation. Of course, we have our children in mind that need to be shown a certain aspect, but that's up to us to cater for that over and over again until we get that child learning that specific thing, right? If they don't come to our small group, we're not going to force them. Okay, so how are our children learning literacy in our program, and how is it evident? Okay, there is a reason why we've got name tags attached to the children's hats. It's not just for identification. Of course, that is fantastic, and with the amount of children that we have in this class, you absolutely need to have labels on their belongings. But when you've got a box full of hats and the child is going through it, that child is looking at different letters. That child is starting to recognize what letters go where in his name. So there's number one. Number two, the locker tags. The locker tags have the children's name on them. Now, I know that some of them are handwritten, and moving forward, you know, they will be in typed writing and things like this. But it is what it is, and children need to experience resilience, and children need to experience all different types of writing styles, because out in the big wide world, not everything is size 11 times new Roman font, right? So we need to expose them to different writing styles. We're also going to be implementing something that I'm very passionate about, is sandpaper letters. So a lot of the time children understand literacy through repetition of a song, and like I said before, a lot of the time you'll get that child to then find the letter, or you know, read you the letter, and they just have no idea, and that's because it hasn't gone into their learning body. They haven't truly got it, and it was probably delivered in a manner that wasn't, it didn't feel okay to learn it in. So we're going to be putting sandpaper letters in the room. We've Arthur and I found these amazing drawers from a chest of drawers, and we're going to fill them up with sand, and we're going to start showing the children all different letters, 2 at a time, and we're going to invite them to trace them, and we're going to do that through repetition. We're also going to have dot-to-dot letters, not on worksheets. There are no worksheets in our kindergarten. And I'm not going to get into that yet, but we're going to start with dot to dot. So when children are first learning how to write, it is super important that they're given the time to practice how that letter might look like. So dot to dot is a wonderful strategy in teaching children to learn, because they need to take their time, but also they can see the development of the shape of the letter. So again, they're getting that repetition and they're getting that visual. Oh, okay, this is what it looks like. Also, the reason why we're putting the sandpaper letters into the classroom very shortly is to support the development of the wrist. So a lot of people don't understand. You'll see children holding a pencil like that, or sometimes you'll find children holding the pencil quite strangely, and in primary school they have a lot of remedial techniques for, you know, those things that you put on the pencils to help children develop the pincer grip. It's called the pincer grip, and the pincer grip is how we essentially hold on to a pencil. But furthermore, if the development of the wrist hasn't been established at quite a young age, the child is always going to have a challenge in how to hold the pen correctly. So before you start teaching your children how to write, it is so important that they develop the wrist. And how you do that is through the use of things like sandpaper letters. Getting really creative with getting the child to be as tactile, so getting their hands working and tracing letters. When you go to the beach with a stick, do S for snake. Get them to do S with snake with the stick. Then draw in the sand S. Get them to, you know, practice. Wet sand, great. Dry sand, even better. Get some shells and put them in the shape of an S. Make it fun. Make it interactive. Make sure you do it and that you're enjoying it. Children are not going to sit beside you or maybe they will. It totally depends on the child. It totally depends on the child, but in my experience, 8 years of teaching, never have I had a child sit next to me and I write their name and then they do it and they've enjoyed it. I'm sure you will agree with me. So in our classroom, there are ways that are evident with their reading. Our group time area, we have a number of books. They're just put out there. And when the children want to, they go and get a book and they're sitting on the couch. They're not just looking at pictures, or maybe they are, but they're getting the repetition of what letters look like. They're getting the repetition of what sentence structure looks like. That is all reading. That is all learning what letters look like together and becoming familiar of what they then look like in return. When you're sitting down at a table and you're making a child trace a letter, or you're making a child, or inviting a child rather, to write their name, it is actually quite stressful for that child if they haven't had enough repetition with reading, with listening to stories, to doing activities, like I said, in the sand and stuff like this that have been fun prior. Because the introduction to writing, yes, the wrist has to be developed, and you do that with lots of active touch experiences and things like starting off, you know, with our toddlers, really thick pencils and really thick crayons, so they get the feeling of it. And then when they come into kindergarten, having a variety of different sized pencils and thicknesses. This time of the year in a kinder program, there should only be really thin, long pencils as to support school readiness and things like this. But if you're not supporting it in a really fun, natural way, the child will then have a negative connotation to it and they won't want to write. And this is why we see so many children have tantrums and get upset when we sit down and we do a birthday card with them, because they don't want to, because they haven't had fun experiences previously. My sister did a really cool activity with my nephew the other day, and it was inspired from my sister's 8 months pregnant, and she's been putting like positive affirmations up all around her house and in her bathroom for a safe delivery and all these crazy great things. And she brought these texters that you can write on the glass with, and so she was writing up a lovely quote, and my nephew saw it and he wanted to do it, and so she just bought a whole stack of them, and now he's writing letters and his name on the outdoor, you know, windows and all of this. It comes off. But most importantly, it's fun and it's free flowing, and then that memory is attached in their psyche or their subconscious that I love to write. I love to write my name. And if you've got that in you, then that will stay with you, and then that will make reading and writing incredibly fun. If you have got a child who's just not interested in writing and is not interested in reading, then we need to strip it right back and start again and introduce ways that are fun and enjoyable, not just for the child but also for you. If you are reading to your child at night, such a super beautiful, super powerful way to introduce literacy, is to read books that you enjoy reading. Don't get books that you don't like reading and then reading them to the child, because essentially what that's going to do, the child will feel that, and guess what? They'll probably be incredibly uninterested in it. But also on the other side of the coin, if your child loves Peppa the Pig and you've got to read Peppa the Pig 20 times in one night just so that they could get to sleep, have fun with it. You know, have fun with it as best you can. Make it fun, because they will feel that as well. Just finishing up. I really hope that has helped you, Dipti. I really hope that has helped you. Guys, I feel like I've spoken so much and I probably overwhelmed you all. Please share your comments on this, and I really, really hope that you've gotten something out of it. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop there. Ciao.